This is CBC Here and Now.
Stay home, stay home. It's the time now not to play Russian roulette with this risky illness.
A small community in coastal Labrador kept COVID out for almost a year.
But now there's a presumptive positive case. Tonight, we'll take you to Makkovik.
As we head towards the end of the week, looks quiet. Weekend, we'll probably see some snow and then a cool down for next week.
I was kind of like, there's no way that can actually be a thing, but it could actually be a thing.
Parents say that their children going to kindergarten next year may not have the opportunity to take French.
For a lot of families like mine, we have older, siblings in French immersion, so it's splitting up families.
I'll explain what's going on in Brook.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan.
And I'm Carolyn Stokes. We'll get to that developing story out of Labrador in just a few moments, but we start with today's update from Public Health.
Yeah, there was no COVID briefing today, but we do have some fresh numbers, so let's take a look. So there are 48 new confirmed cases of COVID-19. All of them are in the eastern region. On top of that, there are still 46 presumptive positive cases. Now, 6 of those are new today, and the rest are leftover from previous days. They've been flagged using a rapid test, but they're still awaiting confirmation. Remember, those presumptive positive cases are treated the same as a confirmed case. So, the total number of active cases in this province now sits at 380. That's a record high for Newfoundland and Labrador. We haven't seen numbers like this before. Today we learned that there are now 2 people in hospital, one more than yesterday. Here's a look at the rapid testing clinic in Brook. It opened at noon today at the back entrance of the Valley Mall. 1 or 2 cars allowed into the parking lot at a time, and a steady stream of people could be seen coming and going from the building. Western Health wants asymptomatic people, so without any signs of COVID, who may have traveled to the St. John's area to get tested, as well as high school staff and students. The clinic is open until 8 o'clock this evening and will open again until Tuesday. In other news, WestJet is suspending service to St. John's starting next month. And starting March 21st, the Calgary-based company is calling down all of its flights from St. John's to Halifax. Flights out of London, Ontario and Calgary are also affected. WestJet says it hopes to resume those flights late June, saying it's had to reduce operations by 90%. And speaking of flights, an update now, just moments ago from Public Health. Anyone who traveled on PAL Flight 917 from St. John's to Happy Valley Goose Bay last Friday, that's February 12th, you're asked to arrange testing. That's in connection to the presumptive positive case in Makkovik.
Yeah, and that's the reason why COVID-19 appears to have spread from St. John's to the farthest reaches of our province. Health authorities on the north coast of Labrador announced the discovery of a presumptive positive case last night in the Inuit community of Makkovik. Here and Now's Garrett Barry has that story.
A widespread testing campaign has begun in Makkovik.
We have 400 swabs sent in. The testing will go right until tomorrow.
Extra nurses and health officials are on the ground tonight after a presumptive positive case was identified late yesterday. Officials say it appears to come from travel from St. John's. The case still has to be confirmed, but health officials are treating it as if it is real.
We want everyone to continue to follow strict public health guidelines now more than ever. We have to. The safety of our vulnerable populations is of utmost concern. I can't stress it enough. We have to live as it is, if it is here.
Today, the store and post office and community government offices were closed. Flights were canceled, and residents of Makkovik are urged not to leave town by snowmobile.
This is a scary day for the community. Makkovik is isolated, far from any big medical centers, and there's no permanent doctors there. Testing began at noon today, so as of tonight, it's too early to tell whether and how far this virus might have spread.
I'm sure in a small community, it won't be long before the word gets out on who it might be, and that kind of thing. So we just being kind and being compassionate. Nobody wants to go out and deliberately contract COVID-19.
It's been a difficult day
emotional, worrisome. I think every feeling possible.
What's helping him is the knowledge that second vaccine doses have arrived in Makkovik. About 75% of the adult population got their second shot this month.
We have to have hope. However, there is going to take some time for the immunity of the second dose to kick in for full immunization. But along with that, continuing with the public health protocols, we have to stay home if necessary, only go out for emergencies such as medicine or essential groceries at this time.
And residents are answering that call to stick together while keeping apart.
I see a lot of the same thing on Facebook talking about how they are scared, they're worried, but they're more worried for the individual. They're hoping that the individual isn't too afraid and doesn't feel alone, and that if anyone needs anything to reach out.
Kara Perry, CBC News, Happy Valley, Goose Bay.
Well, in about 15 minutes, we'll return to Makkovik for a conversation with John Anderson. He's a member of the Nunatsiavut Assembly, and we spoke with him just after he received his COVID test. Well, the return to Alert Level 5 has significantly disrupted the lives of vulnerable people in St. John's and the groups who serve them. Organizations that house, feed, and provide health services say their doors may be closed, but they're still busy as ever. Cease Hare reports.
Food, clothing, somewhere to sleep, things most of us take for granted. Making sure vulnerable people get their needs met is a full-time job, and Alert Level 5 has changed how that's done.
It's been a challenging time like everybody else is experiencing, but we're managing.
Grant says while the doors at the gathering place are closed, they are operating. Health services are scaled back, but remain available in a modified way. And while some services, like accepting clothing donations, are shut down, daily meals are still available.
What we've had to revert to now is a takeaway system where people can come and get their breakfast, and then they come midday and they get their lunch and their dinner. So
the difference is they can't stay.
The difference is they can't come in the building to eat, they're taking it with them.
The food bank is still open. So is the 30-bed shelter at 60% capacity. And there are no more walk-ins, though, and that makes Grant worry for her clients.
We are concerned, absolutely, that people are not able to come in, and we're concerned about people being isolated and the impact it's going to have on their mental health.
A few kilometers away at the Salvation Army Chespenny Center of Hope, it's busy too, getting takeout-style meals and food bank hampers out the door.
Struggling people need to know that they are not alone, and that's what this center is all about.
Loveless says there's no open access to the center and group sessions are shut down, but along with the food, they continue to support people in need.
When it comes to our counseling services and things like that, that is affected to some degree, but not to the degree that people can get the help that they need. It's just that they can't always go into the building now, right? We can't have people coming in to see our counselors, but they can be in touch with them by phone.
Both organizations say even in Alert Level 5, they are open to serve, and if someone needs help, they urge them to reach out. Cease Hare, CBC News, St. John's.
Eastern Health is confirming that a staff member who tested positive for COVID-19 continued to work in St. John's last week while waiting for the results of their test. Here now's Mark Quinn has more on that story and the advice Eastern Health was giving its workers.
Eastern Health CEO David Diamond confirms it happened here. A health authority staff member continued working at St. Clair's Hospital while waiting for the result of their COVID-19 test. Public health officials did believe there was enough reason for the individual to be tested for the virus, but David Diamond says the individual was also cleared to keep working.
In terms of the situation we had at St. Clair's, I know there was some suggestion that the individual wasn't following public health guidelines, but they actually were. And when they got the negative test, or they got the positive test rather, they were removed from the workplace.
CBC has obtained a February 8th Eastern Health staff memo that assured staff who visited the restaurant that exposure was relatively low risk. It went on to say that, on the recommendation and consultation with the Chief Medical Officer of Health, staff who do not currently have symptoms of COVID-19 or have not had symptoms in the last 2 weeks should get a test, but are not required to self-isolate until they receive a negative test result and are permitted to return to work. This all happened before the more contagious B.1.1.7 variant was identified in the province, and the province moved to Alert Level 5 last Friday. Diamond says the same thing won't happen again.
Our occupational health processes really mirror what's happening in the community. If you call and you're booked for testing, then you follow the same isolation procedures. You come out of the workplace until you get the negative result.
Diamond says more than 400 people who work with Eastern Health are now isolating away from work. 8 of them have tested positive, but none of those positive cases are linked to the case at St. Clair's. Mark Quinn, CBC News, St. John's.
There are now 51 St. John's regional firefighters that are self-isolating. More than half are quarantined after a firefighter tested positive yesterday. The department wouldn't say whether that firefighter was on duty when the results came in, only that an internal investigation revealed no public health protocols had been broken. So far, the department says it's maintaining minimum staffing to keep all trucks in operation. 2 stations that temporarily closed down for cleaning have reopened. Going forward, the chief says they'll be looking at staff crossover to keep any potential spread to a minimum.
This particular one obviously gives a real reality to how quickly things can change. We had 1 positive case and we had 27 people have to isolate for that reason. That's part of why we advocate for vaccinations for firefighters in order for us to be able to keep them on duty. And yesterday was just an example.
Meanwhile, an inmate at Her Majesty's Penitentiary in St. John's, all the inmates rather, are being tested. This after a close contact of a correctional officer tested positive for COVID-19. That officer has been self-isolating for more than a week. Testing is happening at the prison, and the Department of Justice says less than 24 staff are isolating. Government says those employees are expected back at work in the coming days.
Well, I saw some sunshine today through parts of the province. Area of high pressure just to the west, but some snow squall activity developed earlier this afternoon for the Avalon. That should end as we head through the next couple of hours. And we do have some onshore flurries on the go for the west coast as well. Temperatures today, at least this morning, were quite chilly. -6 in St. John's, -9 in Badger, and then temperatures across Labrador into the -20s, -23 in Lab City. They climbed pretty nicely this afternoon, -16 in Lab City, and then temperatures into the minus single digits across the island. Now, as we head through the next couple of days, certainly into the beginning of next week, we're going to see some cold air make its way in. Temperatures dipping into the minus teens overnight. And then as we head towards midweek next week, we're going to start to see a little bit of a warm up for eastern areas and then back down to those seasonal temperatures. But I'll break that down for you coming up.
The RCMP says it intercepted an organized crime group trafficking drugs and laundering money between Ontario and this province. The bust includes 12 pounds of MDMA. Police say one of the biggest seizures of that drug in this province's history. Officers went into 5 houses, 2 in Ontario, 2 in St. John's, and 1 in Torbay. Here they seized a handgun and 5 long guns, including a semi-automatic rifle next to a bed. They picked up 10,000 rounds of ammunition, $250,000, 9 vehicles, prescription pills, a small amount of cocaine, and the 12 pounds of MDMA mentioned earlier. 6 people were arrested in total, 3 in this province. Police are calling the operation Project Barnacle and are expecting to make more arrests. Well, unconnected to Project Barnacle, another bust, this time in Shearstown, which is part of Bay Roberts. Let's take a look at the haul. 2 registered handguns, 14 non-registered firearms, along with marijuana, prescription medication, unstamped tobacco, and what police are calling a large sum of cash. A 38-year-old was arrested and held overnight. He's been released on conditions.
Well, the only French immersion program in Corner Brook is facing a numbers crisis. Close to 20 children have been left in limbo, unsure if they'll be accepted into kindergarten French immersion in the fall. Now, for families who already have a student in immersion, 2 schools is just too much. Here and Now's Colleen Connors explains.
CC Laughlin offers optional French immersion to elementary-age students in Corner Brook. Heather Hybricks has 1 child in the program, and her 4-year-old son, Jaron, is supposed to start in the fall. But parents have discovered a cap in numbers. There's not enough for 2 French immersion slots, but more than enough for 1, leaving 19 students without a guaranteed French education.
I mean, we registered last May, so, you know, it's 9 months later, and yeah, a lot of us were kind of dumbfounded, and I was kind of like, there's no way that that could actually be a thing, but it could actually be a thing, and you know, up to 20 families could be told, nope, your kid, you know, might not be able to do French immersion. And for a lot of families like mine, we have older, you know, siblings in French immersion, so it's splitting up families.
2 different schools in the fall, 2 different buses, 2 different languages. There are 46 students registered. The provincial policy says it needs at least 54, enough for 2 slots of 27. A lot of numbers and little explanation. The district says it all comes down to the overall French enrollment.
It's not necessarily the number of classes in kindergarten that we make our decision on. It's, can we make viable numbers when they leave kindergarten? So the class of 27, you know, we're not putting 27 kindergarten students in one classroom. The caps for kindergarten will be maintained. Our real issue is whether or not, as these children move through school, that the numbers are viable enough to ensure that the program doesn't, the optional program doesn't detract from the core program.
For parents, the numbers mean very little. It's about their kids being bilingual.
They can excel when they learn this second language at an early age. And I just think, you know, we live in Canada, you know, it's a bilingual country. We have 2 official languages, so I feel that, you know, access to French education should be a constitutional right for Canadians.
O'Brien has been in talks with a lot of worried parents. Those conversations will continue. And while a cap has always been in place, the school typically doesn't see this kind of low enrollment. O'Brien is reviewing staffing numbers and says there's a good chance the second class of French immersion will go ahead. The school district hopes to have more answers by March about what French immersion will look like for kindergarten students in the fall. Colleen Connors, CBC News, Corner Brook.
Well, the election just keeps on going. NDP leader Alison Coffin held a virtual news conference today to talk about the problems facing healthcare workers and their families. Coffin says injured and retired workers are being called on to help with staffing issues, and she pledged that an NDP government would hire more healthcare workers. She also thinks frontline workers deserve better compensation.
Yes, the essential workers who were on the front lines, who got those $2 bump ups during the first wave of COVID, they absolutely deserve it again. They are still on the front lines. They are still more vulnerable. They are still putting their life at risk. And now we're not even acknowledging the fact that they are being exposed even more. So what we need to do across the board is move towards a $15 minimum wage and then move towards a living wage after that.
Welcome back. Well, most of us take for granted the fact that if we get sick, we can get medical treatment without breaking the bank. It's an especially important benefit in these pandemic times, but not everyone is protected like that. Some people literally can't afford to get sick.
Right now, we don't have MCP, and given the pandemic and everything that is happening, it has actually created worry and anxiety.
Worry and anxiety about the cost of medical treatment if she became ill. Marian Abdikader graduated with a master's degree from MUN in October. That's also when the MCP coverage for her and her 2 children ended. In order for her to qualify again, she needs a full-time job. She's been searching and managed to secure part-time work as a store cashier. She says hunting for full-time work during a pandemic has so far proved fruitless.
And right now we're in a risky situation. The pandemic is here, it's increasing, and I'm really worried. I don't know what I'll do if either me or my children get sick. I don't even think I'll be able to afford the ambulance, leave alone the treatment. So I'm not in any position, and that's why I am just this frantic, and it's very scary. I am so afraid for my children, especially if whenever I go out and I have to go to the bus, go to work, them they're not going to school, they're at home. I'm just worried. Me, the mother who's supposed to even take care of them, might even bring it to them. So I'm worried.
Now, she feels that during the pandemic, government should put protection in place for international graduates like her, even if the medical coverage is just temporary.
We need some urgent measures put in place and support, even if it is temporary MCP or even assurance that should anything happen, like we won't be alone. We're in a risky situation. I don't think we can afford to not have any coverage. It's and we are not the ones who are not doing enough to get those jobs. Jobs have been difficult to come by, and now they're even more difficult. So given these circumstances, I think the government needs to really look into this issue urgently, and as urgently as tomorrow, and waive that.
Time now for a look at the weather forecast. And Ashley, it was a pretty chilly day, but at least we had a bit of sunshine to warm our souls.
Yes, it was chilly. That sunshine certainly felt nice out there, but we are seeing some flurries as well across eastern areas, certainly the Avalon today, but that should end as we head through the next couple of hours. Taking a look at the temperatures today, into the minus single digits, -3 in St. John's, -5 in Corner Brook, and then temperatures into the minus teens as you head towards Lab West at -16, but coastal areas still sitting around -7, -8 as the daytime highs. We've lost a few degrees now across the island, and temperatures will continue to drop, certainly through Labrador as we head through the overnight tonight with cool, calm conditions with some clearing skies as well. -24 will be the overnight low in Lab City. A little breezy for northern areas with winds gusting upwards of about 60 kilometers per hour, so that -20 will feel more like -30 overnight tonight. And then low-lying areas across the island, looking at temperatures dipping into the minus teens, -16 for Grand Falls, Windsor tonight. Winds will ease along the west coast, and it'll stay a little bit breezy for the east. You're looking at northwesterlies about 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Now, with those winds easing, the potential for some snow squalls will end along the west coast as well as we head into the early morning hours. And then we should see the potential for flurries along the northeast coast taper off as well. And then into the morning hours, it does look like the setup for snow squalls will get a little bit better. So we may see some isolated snow squalls through the first half of the day. But overall, going to see some increasing cloud with the chance of scattered flurries for the rest of the island. A beautiful day on tap across Labrador. Plenty of sunshine, but your temperatures will be chilly under a ridge of high pressure. -15 for Lab City is the daytime high, and then temperatures down into the minus double digits for Cartwright as well. Winds will be fairly light out of the west between 15 to 20 kilometers per hour. Across the island, temperatures pretty similar to what we're seeing today, -3 to -4. The northern peninsula, you tap into some of that colder air, so minus double digits will be the story for you. But again, those winds out of the west, 20 to 40 kilometers per hour. Now into Saturday, the first half starting beautifully, but we will see an area of low pressure that's going to track well southeast of the island. However, it does look like it'll bring some snow for eastern areas as we head through the day on Saturday and into Sunday. At this time, looking maybe we'll see 5 to 10 centimeters of snow, and then mainly for eastern areas, and that will continue through Sunday. Those totals will continue through Sunday, and other than that, a ridge of high pressure will move in again from the west, and it's going to make a pretty nice day for most of Labrador, and eventually going to see some clearing skies across the island as well. So temperatures on Saturday, minus single digits, not moving too much from what we're seeing for the past couple of days. And then minus teens, the story for Labrador. We will see a few flurries in the mix for Lab City at minus 16. Into Sunday, we're going to keep those gray skies in for most areas, maybe a few peaks of sun through central, and then minus single-digit temperatures. It will be chilly, overnight lows even more so as we head through Sunday night into Monday. Take a look at these temperatures dipping into the minus 11 degree range. That's probably that is the coldest air that we have seen so far this season. And then into Monday, we're gonna stay below seasonal and then back up as we head into Tuesday with those temperatures bumping up above zero. They might stay there as well into Wednesday. We're going to keep that potential for some flurries in as well. For central Newfoundland, you're looking at temperatures overnight for Sunday night into the minus 17, 18 degree range, and then staying chilly through Monday. By Tuesday, that's when we'll see that warm up, but it is looking like Monday into Tuesday will be fairly nice. The flurry activity will move in late day for you. And then for western Newfoundland, minus single digits through the day. There's that warm up like I mentioned, but onshore flurries will be the story for you, certainly into Monday night, Tuesday, and then we're looking at 1 degree, and then overnight dipping into around 0 degrees. Now for eastern Labrador, pretty quiet as far as temperatures go. We'll see a little bit of a warm up as we head towards the end of the week, or at least the beginning of next week. A few flurries, the story through Sunday. And then for Lab West, a few flurries across the board, really, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And then temperatures will slowly warm up for you as well into the minus single digits. Speaking of Labrador, I wanted to share this photo. Sunsets at the cabin are always the best sunsets. This one was taken in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Thank you to Lorianne for sharing that with us. And if you have any weather photos to share with us, send them to nlphotos@cbc.ca.
People in Makkovik are worried that COVID may have arrived on the north coast of Labrador. So just how are people feeling? Well, John Anderson represents Makkovik in the Nunatsiavut Assembly. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to have you on.
So what are people in the community feeling right now?
People are in pretty good spirits here right now. There's a lot of testing going on. There's long lineups there, but people are pretty cool about it. So there's no worry here. Well, there's been a worry, I guess, but no one is panicking yet.
You mentioned the testing there. You just got back from getting tested yourself. What was that experience like?
Not bad. It's not something I want to do every day, but you get it done. It's a bit uncomfortable only.
The request has been to get everyone to go in and get a test to make sure that there hasn't been any spread. What's the response been like? Have people been wanting to go and do it?
There's been lineups there all day, and they're calling people's phone numbers to make sure everybody gets there. So I'm hoping that the whole community, right from the oldest to the youngest, is going to be tested.
Now, about 3/4 of your town has received the vaccine for COVID. How big of a difference does that make when it comes to people's comfort and their worry?
I guess it makes the people that's got the 2 shots a bit more comfortable, but we were told like it's 2 weeks before it actually takes the whole effect. But it does make people rest easy a bit once they got it.
And how has the response been from public health officials since you heard about this case last night?
Well, myself and Anya Cockberry Anderson had a call with Labrador Grenfell Health and Department of Health and Social Development about 8:15 last night, and they were right on the ball. They told us what was happening and what they were going to do today, coming in and that wanted to do testing. Urging people to stay at home and not to travel to other communities on Skidoo, and urging other communities to stay away from Makkovik today on Skidoo. So they were right on the ball, and we're pretty thankful for that.
So I guess the next step is we still need to hear back from the lab to see whether or not this is in fact a confirmed case of COVID.
Yeah, I guess we'll hear probably tomorrow morning. We'll hear back from it. Went there today to St. John's. But we're hoping for the best, but preparing for the worst. But the community has really come together since COVID has come on, and staying at home last spring when they had to, and now since the class 5 come on again from Dr. Fitzgerald, people are stayed at home and you don't see anybody around, you don't see the kids out sliding or anything like that. So everybody's taking it pretty serious.
Okay, well, John Anderson, I appreciate the update and hoping for the best as well here.
Yep, well, thank you. And Air Borealis had no flights in here today, only just mail and freight. There's no people traveling.
Students are working from home now, and that's challenging for all parents. But if your child has attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, it presents even more barriers. Some of those families in this province say the healthcare and education systems are falling short when it comes to providing direction and support. Before the latest lockdown, Here and Now's Jane 80 spoke with the parent of a child with ADHD who's trying to bring about change.
Joanne Middleton, tell me about your experience after getting a diagnosis of ADHD for your daughter. What kinds of supports are available right now in our healthcare system?
When it was indicated through our school evaluation process that my daughter had ADHD, we made an appointment with our family doctor. The diagnosis was confirmed by our doctor. However, as a parent wanting the best for my child, I wanted to know all about the condition and what my child had and what the next steps are and what a treatment plan would be. And knowing there's an association here for children with autism, I asked what resources are here in Newfoundland and Labrador for ADHD, and the reply was that there's nothing. We were given a website on a piece of paper, a referral to the developmental pediatric department at the Janeway, And after a long wait with hopeful anticipation of being in the hands of a specialist, we thought we'd be given some more information and resources. But again, we were met with another piece of paper with a website on it, some medication, and an appointment for a year down the road. So to say that this was heartbreaking was really to put it mildly. We were left on our own to educate ourselves about ADHD. And my daughter was having to go to school not knowing what was going on with herself, not knowing how to learn the way she was expected to learn, and then also be met with a lot of misunderstanding while attending school. We've reached out to the Janeway multiple times to obtain therapy so my daughter can learn strategies to cope for her differences, but we're just turned away time after time, saying that she didn't qualify for those departments. And even if she did, the wait lists would be extensive.
Let's talk about the school system now. I know that when a child gets diagnosed with ADHD, they are then entitled to certain supports in the school system. They're called accommodations. It could be things like hard copies or digital copies of class notes, or even extra time to complete a test or a quiz. What's your experience with these supports or accommodations in the school system right now?
Yeah, firstly, I'd like to say that there are some really wonderful schools here with great teachers who do get this. They do get ADHD. However, they're very supportive and accommodating. But after scratching the surface and speaking with other parents, other groups and associations, such as the Newfoundland and Labrador Learning Disability Association, the Autism Society, the Child Youth Advocacy Office, who deal with neurodiverse children, they all commented that these children are not being understood. They're not being accommodated properly and effectively. There's not, this has not just been today, but historically, we've not been good at supporting our children with ADHD in their education and medically. Referencing to the treatment modality for ADHD, a big aspect of treatment is teacher training, accommodations, effective school communication. When doing my research and wondering if our educators are trained in ADHD awareness, I found that the answer was no. Our educators are not trained in ADHD. In university, teacher training for ADHD is only covered in a very small aspect of one course. Even at the guidance level in university, ADHD training is minimal. And, PD days here in the province, it's really over the years just been a half a day, where ADHD has been the main topic for those. It's really important to have this training and understanding so that our educators know the condition and all that it entails. It's not a child being willful, but a child with a mental health condition, a disability that needs understanding and a little flexibility in school strategies. Accommodations that we speak of here are things like copies of notes, either a hard copy or a digital copy, an extra copy of textbooks, class outlines, quiet setting for assessments, extra time for assessments, and at times flexibility with planning and due dates. For neurotypical children, these things may not seem like a big deal, but for children with ADHD, they're vital and necessary. These accommodations are the prostheses they need to stand on level footing in order for them to learn effectively. And providing these accommodations for this mental health disability is key to their learning. Schools need to acknowledge these children and to make it a priority to deliver accommodations at the start of the school year and to continue with them through the entire year. A lot of times parents are having to ask over and over for these, and quite often I've heard and experienced that it's not till after the first term that children are finally settled and have these accommodations. So without teacher understanding and without these accommodations from the onset, so many children are suffering needlessly in our schools today.
Joanne Middleton, you've obviously done a lot of research on this topic and asked a lot of questions. Do you know how many kids we might have in our school system in Newfoundland and Labrador struggling with ADHD?
Yes, yeah. The current statistics that were given to me through the Janeway was that up to 11% of children across our country have ADHD. In our Safe Back to School plan that was released in August, Our current population of students is nearly 64,000. So that equates to about 7,000 children in our province that may be coping with ADHD. What these children need from all of our leaders, our healthcare system and educational system supports. They need this as a part of their treatment modality. We've spent enough time talking about these problems, and now it's time for action and getting these children what they need. Someone said to me recently, politicians are only concerned about the next few years and they don't see things long term. But, I put the challenge out to them. I put a call forward to all of our elected officials, no matter which party, to step up for these children, to make Newfoundland and Labrador the place that does ADHD the right way, and for that to be their legacy.
Joanne Milton, I can appreciate that this is a very difficult time for school-age children, particularly because of the COVID situation. I want to thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Jane. Take care.
Stay at home unless you need to go out or essential. The virus only moves when you do, and if you move, you must mask and stay 6 feet apart.
Well, what a difference a week can make. Lots to unpack.
Just ahead, we'll keep you up to speed by fielding some of your COVID questions.
With record testing levels and a high number of COVID cases, we know people have a lot of questions out there. And Peter, as usual, you've been working on getting some answers.
Yeah, I'm happy to try and answer some of the questions that people have out there. Carolyn, what do you got for me?
Okay, so we know that people are looking for some practical advice. So some people are asking, when can they or should they leave their home?
Well, it's a case really that if you have to ask, the answer is you probably shouldn't go out. Certainly outside exercise is one thing that you are allowed and in fact encouraged to do outside your home. Always a little bit harder in the middle of February. But when it comes to whether you should be going inside, especially with other people, Dr. Janice Fitzgerald outlined that there really are only 3 main reasons for that to happen.
New cases are the result of interactions as long as 2 weeks ago. This means our behavior now will determine how well we fare in the weeks to come. Strict adherence to public health measures and restrictions is essential. There should only be 3 reasons to enter an indoor public space at this time. If you have to purchase essentials such as food and medication, and only 1 person per household should enter a store unless they require an escort or there are no other adults in the home to care for children. If you are required to be physically present at work, or if you require emergent or urgent medical care.
Okay, some helpful advice there, Peter. And the high numbers in this outbreak have conjured up memories of the calls cluster last year. How does this outbreak compare to that?
Well, it's a little difficult because this one isn't over. So when we're looking at total cases, ours are still increasing right now. So let me give you a few comparison numbers though. So at the peak of that calls cluster, we had 192 active cases of COVID-19. Right now, we have 380 active cases. So by that measure, we're already double our peak from that first cluster. A few graphs might be useful here, so let me show you a few of the numbers. So let's start by looking at daily case count. So I'm using the 7-day average here, which smooths out some of those sort of natural variations because of testing, but it gives you the trends here. So you can see that the number of daily cases we're seeing now took a very sharp climb upwards, reflective of the fact that the variant is estimated to be 70% more transmissible, and the peak is much higher than you can see than we saw from the calls cluster. So let's just look at the last week or so. We'll kind of zoom in on that graph. So you can see the bright red line there, that's the daily reported case counts that we've been telling you about every day. The dark red line is the average over the last week. So it does a better job of showing the trend. And you can see the good news is it's trending downwards. You'll remember it was a week ago we were dealing with 100 cases, so the fact that it's 48 today, that is at least an improvement. The one caveat here is there are still more than 40 rapid tests that haven't been confirmed, so they haven't shown up in our figures yet. So a couple of days with really low numbers, those might have been artificially low. So anyway, signs are in the right direction for those numbers. And one last graph that I want to show you before I stop nerding out with all these numbers is this is our testing numbers. So we hit another record today with more than 3,000 tests completed. And you can see from this chart just how much more testing we're doing now than any time during this pandemic. How are we doing so many? Well, it really comes down to the lab in Moncton. They've been helping us out with a lot of these tests. So yeah, Carolyn, that's one of the things that they've been able to do in order to get our testing numbers up.
I really like your graphs, Peter.
Oh, thank you.
So speaking of testing, when it comes to variant testing, are they still sending samples away to be verified?
So yes and no. Right now, if it's a new case in the eastern region, they're assuming that any of those cases are the variant. When they did the testing initially, they found that all the cases were coming back positive for the B117 variant. That's the one that was first detected in the UK. So they've just stopped doing that testing because it's not very useful. If they are seeing cases in other areas, so we've seen some that are related to travel, for example, in the western region, they're going to still send those off to be tested because they want to know if this virus is coming in to the province from other areas or if it's just sort of this one outbreak that they're dealing with. There is a wait time though. These have to go off to the national lab in Winnipeg. It takes up to a week to get those results back because there's lots of other provinces that have variants that are in for testing as well. So we are building our own capacity to do that test here locally within the next week or so. They're expecting to be able to do that. So that'll give us a little faster turnaround time, Carolyn, on just whether they're able to do that.
Okay, so some more testing questions questions for you. We've been hearing more about the presumptive positive cases in the rapid tests. What is the benefit of using the rapid tests?
Carolyn, the big advantage is really speed. When they run the test with those rapid tests, within an hour they've got an answer. So if someone's positive, you know right away, you can get them into isolation, you can start contact tracing, speeds up that process. Why not use it for everyone? Well, the downside is accuracy. Accuracy, says Dr. Janice Fitzgerald. They have to verify these at the lab because some of the cases that they have been seeing that maybe show up negative on the rapid test later show up positive on the PCR lab test, so they can't take any chances. They need to do that gold standard test before they allow someone to actually be declared negative with that testing.
It has been going well. We are finding those positive cases very quickly. The downside with the rapid testing, of course, is that it does have a higher false negative rate. So that's why everybody who has a test has to continue to isolate until they get their test result back and that it's confirmed a negative by PCR. We have had some of the people who, we have had some of the tests, I should say, that were negative on the rapid antigen testing that then went on to be positive later with testing.
Well, Peter, thanks once again for answering a lot of questions.
And I've got a few more questions for the briefing tomorrow, Carolyn.
Great. We'll listen for it then. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dr. Fitzgerald, for letting us lean on you.
That is
Oh, that's
so sweet.
very nice that everyone's finding their own way to recognize Dr. Janice Fitzgerald.
Yeah, so many people have been thanking Dr. Janice Fitzgerald in different and very creative ways as well. That was Bridget from Logie Bay, Middle Cove, Outer Cove, and she was playing Lean On Me. Her dad, Brian Roach, uploaded that video to Twitter last night.
Very nice.
Well, before we leave you tonight, a quick update on vaccines. Federal officials say the delivery of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine is back on track and is going to be accelerated. About 1.8 million doses are scheduled to be in Canada by the end of the month. By the end of next month, more than double that number should be delivered across the country.
As of now, we anticipate receiving 444,000 doses each week in March. By the end of March, we will have distributed 4 million doses of Pfizer-BioNTech product. Last week, Minister Anand announced that the Government of Canada negotiated an accelerated delivery schedule for Pfizer-BioNTech. This means that doses of Pfizer-BioNTech scheduled for delivery in the summer will now be delivered earlier.
There we go.
That's it for us.